What a treasure is our Catholic faith, our bishop says. And I hope you noticed some of the St. Timers that were depicted there. We got St. Timers also involved in our Catholic radio station, and I hope you know about that station and that you listen, because there's so much wisdom that is transmitted through Catholic radio. The Word of God is not chained. This is the message of St. Paul to our patron saint, St. Timothy, in the second reading. The Word of God is not chained. Paul says, I am in chains for the Word, but the Word of God is not chained. I am being treated as a criminal for spreading the Word of God, but it is not chained. He's in prison, yet the Word goes forth. I can imagine Paul in that time with maybe the bars facing outward and his disciples coming and listening to his wisdom that he's transmitting and spreading it. The Word of God is not chained, but we try to chain it as a country, as individuals. We try to chain it. It won't be chained. Usually when we try to chain it, we ourselves become chained, bound, really by sin. The Word of God says, thou shalt not kill. But our government, which is prompted by people and corruption, allow it. Actually encourage it, actually sponsor it. See, these lepers that go to the respective prophets, Jesus being the uber prophet, are symbolic. Yes, they have leprosy, but they're symbolic of corruption, of sin, that this disease is eating away their flesh, a symbol of the corruption of sin, of being bound, of being chained. And Naaman, who is a Syrian, he's a Gentile, a foreigner, he has a slave who is a Hebrew girl. And you would think that this Hebrew girl, seeing that her master had this disease, would be going, yeah, he's dying. This is going to take his life. This is going to ostracize him from the community. No, she has a connection with the Word, and she says, take him to this prophet, Elisha, that he may be healed. And Naaman is resistant, but they eventually convince him. And the prophet just says to him, he doesn't even hold his hand over the spot or invoke some major prayer. He just says, go dunk into the Jordan 7 times. It's like, what? You're wacky. That's a dirty piece of water. Last year, or 3 years ago, when we came back from the Holy Land, it was this time of the year, so we're in this cycle of readings. We dropped the screen, and I showed you what the Jordan looks like. It's very murky, and some of the pilgrims, you can buy tunics and go in. But the tour guide will tell you, do not submerge your head, do not open your mouth and get any droplets in it, because then you're going to be sick for the rest of the pilgrimage. Even in this time, it wasn't considered a very good piece of water. Naaman reluctantly, it's like, come on, just go. His attendants encourage, just go. And he does it. And his flesh is restored to that of a child. And he goes in thanksgiving to Elisha. And then he says, there is no God that I'm going to worship except the God of Israel. That probably made his Hebrew slave very happy when he returned home. And then these lepers that were separated from the community, they could not be involved in temple worship. They couldn't be involved in family life. You're ousted. Can you imagine how lonely, how isolating that would be? And they probably hung out and they commiserated. And either you healed, and you had to go to the Levitical priest to be certified to go back to temple worship, or you eventually died. It's a horrible death. Imagine living like that. And then these 10, they go to Jesus, one being a foreigner, one being a Samaritan, the rest being Hebrews, and they go to the Lord. heal us, help us, save us, clean us. He doesn't do anything special either. He doesn't raise his hands. He doesn't invoke any major prayers. Show yourself to the Levitical priests. I'm like, okay, this itinerant preacher from Nazareth, he said, go to the priests. All right, on the way, they're healed. You imagine the ecstasy. For whatever reason, the Hebrew ones did not come back. Just the foreigner. Maybe they were so excited about being restored to temple worship, they simply forgot. Who knows? But the Samaritan comes back, and he can't be restored to temple worship like they can. He can stand in the court of the Gentiles, but that's it. But he can still be restored to his community, his family, his life. And he goes back and he gives thanks. Symbolic. It's a real healing, but it's symbolic of being freed, unchained from sin. The Word of God is not chained, but we do try to chain it. The government, like I said, individuals, the government will chain it saying abortion is okay, it's legal. It's not moral, but it's legal. And we chain it. We did a skit for the teens when I was a seminarian in Oregon called Jesus Stay. And in the skit, we did this for kids getting ready for confirmation. And in the skit, you have one guy sitting there, maybe reading the Bible or reading a book of the saints, and he's talking to Jesus. It's like, I really like the time that we spent together. And Jesus is silent, he's just present. And then later, one of the buddies comes into the door and he says, hey, we got a party this weekend, or we got a party going on right now, and we got a keg. Remember, these are teens. We got a keg, and Donna's gonna be there, and she's wearing a bikini. Come on, let's go. And he gets up to go, and Jesus starts following him, and he kind of turns around and he kind of pushes Jesus back into place, and then he starts to go, and Jesus starts following him, and he pushes Jesus back, and finally he says, Jesus, stay, putting the nails in his hands. Jesus, stay, trying to chain the Word of God. See, we try to chain it all the time. We compartmentalize our life, and we say, Jesus, you're not invited into this part of my life. You're not invited into my marriage in this capacity, because we have made a decision to contracept. And we say, and we hear all kinds of things. Oh, that's man-made law. What is it? It's church's business. They're living in their ivory tower. What's the Word of God say? Well, look at Onan in the book of Genesis and what happened to him. He practiced coitus interruptus. Look, it's in the Word of God. We cheat on our taxes. And like, everybody does it. Trying to chain the Word of God. Because he says, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. Now, I believe in giving no more to Caesar than what belongs to Caesar. You're like, man, you look at that. Look at how much they took. And they want more. But Jesus said, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. So the guy that does my taxes is a man of God. And he's not going to say, Father John, even though you don't qualify for this deduction, we're going to take it. And even though you don't have any paperwork to prove that you paid this or that, we're going to write it down. Because he has to stand before God at the exit interview, and so do I. There's going to be an exit interview. We're not getting out of it. The Word of God is a two-edged sword. Cuts joint from marrow and bone from bone. Now, somebody came out after the last mass and said, well, I don't like all this stuff with the taxes and where my money's going. And you're like, you don't have to agree with that. And think about Jesus' time. The Romans were taxing the Hebrews, And what were the Romans doing? Yet Jesus still says, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. We chain the word of God in our behavior. I remember my best friend telling me about one of his parishioners, or a couple of them, coming to his office. He's in Northern California. He's preached on hot button topics before. And he was encouraging the people that came in to live as the gospel teaches. One of the people there said, he's quoting from the Bible, "Father, that's all smoke to me." Wow. The Word of God, trying to chain it. No, you don't want to be standing there at the exit interview with the accuser saying, "Remember what she said about the Word, that it's smoke? I remember." No, you don't want to be there. The Word of God cannot be chained, but we try to chain it through cohabitation. We know what the Word of God says, yet I hear it even from priests. Oh, there should be a different standard for single people, and there is, but not what they mean. Not what they mean. We're in love. Love never puts the other at risk of losing their eternal salvation. That is true love. Not putting others at risk. The Word of God will not be chained. It persists even to the present day. Friends, if we feel empty inside, if we feel like we have no connection, if we're hurting, the Lord desires to heal us. Sometimes we may avail ourselves of even maybe the examination of conscience, the little sheets outside the confessional, because somehow we're trying to chain the Word of God and we've been bound by evil. We've been bound by sin. The Lord came to set us free. The Lord came to set us free, to unbind us like he did Lazarus in that tomb so long ago. The Word of God will not be chained. Friends, let us be like those lepers, open, passive, receptive, realizing our own state, and go to the Lord and ask for mercy, ask for healing, ask to be unbound.